What if I told you the group everyone once called a talk shop is now outpacing the G7 and quietly building a world where the West has less say than ever? Most people still think of BRICS as just 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. A few meetings, some joint statements, not much else. But that view is stuck in the past. As of June 2025, BRICS has transformed into something far bigger and far more powerful. Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, Egypt, Ethiopia, they're all now full BRICS members, and the list keeps growing. More than 40 countries have formally applied to join, including Nigeria, Thailand, Pakistan, and even Venezuela. This isn't random. It's a calculated move, a geopolitical chessboard of countries aiming for the same goal: to trade, grow, and prosper without needing Western approval. Here's a fact that should have been headline news everywhere. In 2023, BRICS economies surpassed the G7 in purchasing power parity (GDP). In plain language, BRICS countries now produce and consume more in real economic terms than the United States, Germany, Japan, the UK, and the rest of the G7 combined. This didn't happen overnight. While Washington debated elections, sanctions, and social media bans, BRICS nations were busy aligning trade routes, resource deals, infrastructure, and local currency systems. Now, the tipping point is here. The Global South is no longer asking for a seat at the Western table. It's building its own. Let's talk about energy, the ultimate power lever. With Saudi Arabia and Iran inside the BRICS circle, and Russia plus the UAE as major players, this group now controls over 40% of the world's oil production. Add natural gas, especially from Russia, Iran, Algeria, and BRICS countries control a massive share of global LNG capacity too. This is not just an economic club anymore. It's a resource superpower in the making. OPEC still sets production targets, sure, but BRICS is starting to influence both supply and demand, deciding how oil and gas are priced, sold, and shipped, often without the dollar. The US still has shale oil and reserves, but the reality is simple. The energy map has shifted, and Washington is no longer in the driver's seat. Oil gets the headlines, but gas is where the real shift is unfolding. Russia, Iran, Algeria, Qatar, all current or potential BRICS partners, together hold a huge share of global gas reserves and LNG exports. Now think about this. What happens if they start coordinating prices, or redirecting long-term LNG contracts to Asia and Africa in non-dollar payments? This isn't wishful thinking. It's reality in motion. In 2024, Russia began selling LNG to India, settled in rupees. Iran's barter trade with China is up and running. Qatar has quietly shown interest in a BRICS energy coordination framework. Call it a slow-motion OPEC, but not built on production quotas. It's built on flexible currency deals and long-term trust. The West still buys the energy. But if you can't control the suppliers and can't control the currency, you don't have leverage. You have dependency. A few years ago, de-dollarization sounded fringe. Now it's happening, deal by deal. In 2024 alone, over $400 billion in trade between BRICS nations was settled without the US dollar, instead using yuan, rupees, rubles, and other local currencies. China and Brazil now settle bilateral trade in yuan. India and Russia have a rupee-ruble settlement system for key imports. Even Saudi Arabia, long seen as loyal to the dollar, now sells oil to China in yuan. This is not about killing the dollar overnight. It's about making it optional, not mandatory. And when the dollar becomes optional, America's power to shape global trade outcomes naturally weakens. This isn't a theory anymore. It's happening, invoice by invoice. One of the biggest developments this year is the renewed push for a BRICS currency. possibly backed by gold, rare earths, or a basket of national reserves. Has it launched? Not yet. But Russia and Brazil have formally proposed a shared settlement unit. The new development bank, the BRICS Bank, has commissioned feasibility studies. Several finance ministers have called for a common reserve asset to reduce dollar risk. Don't think of it as a euro-style currency. It's more subtle, a trade tool for lending and settlement within BRICS, especially useful for smaller nations wanting to break out of dollar-based debt traps. The US does not need to panic, but it does need to pay attention. This isn't copying the dollar, it's creating an exit ramp. If BRICS were just a forum for statements, it wouldn't matter. But here's the crucial piece. They are building real institutions to back this shift. The new development bank, based in Shanghai, is BRICS' financial engine. It has already issued billions in loans for infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. But here's the twist. Most of these loans are not in US dollars. They're in local currencies like rand, rupees, or reais, shielding borrowers from dollar swings and avoiding the IMF or World Bank altogether. So the NDB isn't an angry protest against the West's finance system. It's a functioning alternative. In a world struggling with debt, that sells itself. Why are countries from Southeast Asia to West Africa lining up to join BRICS? Simple. Self-interest. No lectures on governance. No human rights clauses attached. No dollar debt strings. Just cheaper capital and a seat at a table not run by Washington or Brussels. For leaders tired of being told what to do, BRICS looks like freedom. And the irony? The more the US pressures countries to stay loyal, the more attractive BRICS seems, because BRICS doesn't force anyone to pick sides. Look at Africa, where this realignment is crystal clear. Ethiopia joined BRICS in 2024. Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, is negotiating membership. Algeria and Egypt are already in or on the way. South Africa isn't just a member. It's pushing for an entire African corridor within BRICS. What does that mean? Trade routes, digital payments, and security pacts that bypass the dollar, linking Africa straight to Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America without Western intermediaries. Sure, the US still holds sway in Africa, with bases, aid, and partnerships. But to many African governments, BRICS offers what Washington rarely does: infrastructure and trade, no strings attached. Trade once flowed through US-controlled routes, Atlantic shipping, dollar-based banks, Western ports. Now, BRICS is quietly redrawing that map. Russia is linking railways through Iran to the Gulf. China bypasses the Malacca Strait using the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. India and Brazil are building direct shipping lines to Africa, avoiding US and EU gatekeepers. Even South American countries like Argentina, historically reliant on US trade, are looking east. It's not about conflict. It's about convenience and control. If you can trade with lower fees, fewer rules, and $0 exposure, why use New York or London at all? This is how superpowers fade, not with a dramatic collapse, but when the world quietly stops needing their systems. Some call BRICS an anti-West rebellion, but that misses the real point. They're not just rejecting the West, they're replacing it with something new. A bank that doesn't ask the IMF for permission, a trade system that doesn't run on dollars, energy deals that skip OPEC rules and US oversight, a potential currency not minted in Washington but backed by real resources and members' reserves. This is not a protest, it's construction. And that makes it hard to block because BRICS isn't angry. It's determined. It's building a framework that works for the global South on their terms. That's the risk the West hasn't fully absorbed. Right now, the US still dominates finance, media, and the military sphere. But BRICS isn't trying to topple the United States. It's simply outlasting it. Demographics favor BRICS. Debt burdens weigh heavier in the West. Resource control leans east. Infrastructure? China alone is decades ahead. The global South isn't rushing. but it is shifting. And if this realignment keeps its quiet pace, the West won't face sudden collapse. It will face something far more powerful, a world where its dominance is no longer necessary. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.